Good morning. Thanks for joining today. Hopefully, we can make a good use of your time here and talk about some pretty interesting and kind of exciting topics. So let's kick this off. In. So I'm John Baird. I am here today to talk to you about really how generative AI is revolutionizing the way small business competes, wins, and grows in ways that were unthinkable even just a decade ago. I've talked and written often about the Gen AI tsunami that we're in right now, and it's pretty impactful. And I focus on a lot of my practice areas around state and local government, excuse me, and enterprise, Fortune 50, Fortune 500 companies, and that's great. And they're going through a lot of interesting challenges with this little ride, but I kind of want to go back to my roots and some of my early days in consulting, and that's why I ended up with this subtitle here of from Gen AI, or excuse me, from Gmail to Gen AI, and leveling the playing field again. So I'll kind of talk through a little bit in my experience and how I was able to do that with some other small businesses, and hopefully you'll walk away with all the tools that you need to start this out and take advantage of it right now. This is not something that we're planning for, going to go to school for, or any of that. It's something that you should be doing today. So with this shift, it's not just a shift, it's really a revolution, right? And in this case, small business isn't playing catch up anymore. It's a leapfrog. And what I mean by that is that small business has always been at a disadvantage in how to leverage some of the more expensive and modern technology. And that's not the case. It wasn't the case back when I was doing some small business consulting, and it's sure not the case today, as we'll see. Back to the day when I was doing some small business consulting, right? Working with some small firms that were just struggling to stay afloat, right? Managing whatever their practice was. I'll take a contractor, for example, right? So they have their skills, their trade, but they're also setting up all of the admin functions that are required for this type of a business, right? They're doing QuickBooks for the first time. They have no idea what email is. They don't even think that they want it or need it, much less a website. So they're at a serious disadvantage because they don't have good guidance coming from inside. It's just another area that they're trying to figure out how to find an expert for that they can fit in within their budget, right? So this has been a bit of a struggle, and one that really is a big part of why small businesses don't succeed in the early years. So back in the day, back in my day, when I was doing this consulting, is about the time that Gmail had come out, right? And when Gmail came out, it really started to offer some services that small, medium businesses could now grab onto that they couldn't afford before. So a good shift here is when you compare what it took to have email at the same time, right? So at email at the same time, that meant an Exchange server, that meant running Windows server, that meant licenses and CALs and all the networking and all those components that are required for an internal network to leverage these internal servers and such. And all that requires a skill set, right? It may be a skill set that the average small business owner doesn't have, right? It's probably not their form of practice, you could say. And so this really puts them at a disadvantage. And so what I was doing in consulting was coming in and giving them cloud services. In this case, it was primarily Gmail, and would give them Google Drive, and it would give them the ability to do some documentation, some rudimentary website kind of stuff, as well as email. But more importantly, it gave them the .com that they wanted, right? So now they could show up in the digital universe where before they were totally without. And they have this .com and don't really even know what a DNS record is, right? Which is probably a really, really good thing. Hopefully you don't know what it is either. So it was neat. It was super powerful, and it really leveled the playing field for small business. And they could do so for what really was pennies on the dollar, if that, fractions of pennies, to be honest with you. Someone gets set up an early Gmail could be free or could be, whatever, $10 a month, maybe per user. Now you're looking at $20, $30 a month for small business, as opposed to setting up an on-prem Exchange server in your back closet and then running into air and heating and all those challenges that go with it. So just a crazy amount of leveling, which I think is really important. So now we have this tsunami, right? So imagine this for just a moment, that you have a $1 billion R&D department, but without any salary costs. Well, that's Gen AI. It writes, it designs, it plans, and it never sleeps. This is more a shift, more than a shift, excuse me. It's a tsunami of transformation, and small business is finally out on the front. And so this graphic is intentional. I put this on here because that's small business. And when we talk about a tsunami, sometimes we show them standing on the beach as the wave crashes on the top, right? They're at a small disadvantage or a large disadvantage. But with this tsunami, it's one that they can actually ride and rise to the top. So think about this a little bit. Because you can leverage some of these tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney and all this to do a lot of the heavy lifting that you really didn't have the resources for in the past. So I'll kind of dive in a little bit and give you an idea of what that setup could look like with some names. And these names are based on today's date because they're going to change. There's no doubt about it. But this table just kind of puts together some of the key concepts that really are important and costly and honestly a barrier for most small businesses. So on the left there, we've got the capability. Let's look at copyright and ads, right? I used to work in an ad agency way back in the day, back before my resume goes to, you could say. But it was an amazing experience. I learned a lot from it. And I've specialized in direct marketing, which is very similar to how email marketing and some of those campaigns work today. But in that, I had the time to understand how copyright works, right? And so you pay for a copywriter who's very, very skilled person, very, very strong with their words and quips and those kinds of things. And that copywriter makes you several versions of copy, right? And then they add that to, maybe a photographer designer in order to do a layout and get some photos of the products, things like that. All that stuff kind of bringing it together. So neat, awesome stuff, very, very expensive. And so most small businesses don't do it. And if they do it, it's more of a growth achievement that they were able to conquer. And you look at today with ChatGPT, with Canva, with Midjourney, with some of these tools, you can use a sentence, a paragraph, a 10 minutes of your time to get excellent quality copy for sure, but layout, design, images, and more. Cost on that, 15 bucks a month, maybe 20, 30. I mean, it's sort of crazy compared to what it would cost in the Fortune 500 world, right? I was at Microsoft for a while, and we do some very nice, nicely produced in-house trainings and things like that. It's very, very high dollar, right? But it makes sense for such a large organization. You can get the return on that. For a small business, you can't do it. Well, now you can, right? Look at some of these other ones, call center and customer service. A chatbot can answer these things. And I'm going to say chatbot if you're not familiar with that. If you've used any kind of bot in the past, it's nothing like that. It's a very different experience. The level of AI that we have now actually understands spoken natural language very, very well. So it doesn't frustrate you, which was the challenge that we had in some earlier versions. Legal documents and stuff like that, again, templates. You can obviously want to get it reviewed by a lawyer, but those first drafts and that initial savings of time, which when you're talking about a lawyer is money, right? That is a tremendous saving. So there's more and more. I could go on about app development. Before that took a team of people, and then we kind of got crazy and we outsourced it all, and it went overseas, and it still took a team of people, and then they would work on stuff all night, and you'd get in the morning, and that was amazing. Honestly, now AI writes the code. And so if there's something that you need and that's unique in your business, I'm working with some real estate investors right now that are trying to do some code, you could say, a little program to help scour the net and do the math on some of these things to make sure that they understand what the value is of the property, right? And so they thought about paying for it. It's super, super expensive. I said, just talk to ChatGPT and have it write it for you. I can show you how to do that too through GitHub, some free tools out there. And data analysis, I just hold that one to the end again. It really started out with data scientists. It really started out with a tremendous amount of hardware and all of that. And most Fortune 500 companies today have all of that, and it still exists today, and they're using it. You can come along as a small business and leverage AI, and suddenly you've got that same kind of analysis for not even a fraction of the cost. I mean, just such a small amount. Pretty amazing stuff. So let me go one more example. This is real life. This is the contractor that I kind of mentioned before, and they're going to leverage GPT powered agents to pull history from jobs, to do bid recommendations, and even to write job site reports, all from voice or chat. So think of this. This is a very non-technically empowered field in most ways, right? But they've all got phones. They've all got their voice. And for someone in the field to be able to chat back and forth, they can get all of this stuff done with leveraging different agents, right? So things like quotes, things like RFPs and bids and all that, those are very, very time consuming. But the odds are you've done this all before, right? So imagine feeding a bot your existing bids and understand your style and let it do the first draft, do some tweaking, tweak the rules, do the second draft. When you get down a little bit, suddenly now you're going to, on voice, talk via phone to your chat GPT. It's going to then build the bid and email a draft while you're standing there. So it multiplies that one person business. That one person in the field now is doing all these different things all simultaneously. And that's just one piece. I've listed some more on here. Hopefully you had a chance, and you'll get these slides after to kind of dig in a little bit more. Pretty amazing stuff. I think the biggest and most brightest about a lot of this is that there are general GPT things that are very, very valuable, right? And I've mentioned those, I've kind of focused on those. But the most value in the end is leveraging your own business data, right? So in some cases that's a phone, or you've got your all your contacts on that. Sometimes it's in the cloud with your provider, your Gmail or your Microsoft, depending on where your data is at, but also where your data is in your CRM or in your ERP. Sorry for all the acronyms, but your customer relationship management or your enterprise relation or resource management. So that's how you manage your business, right? So from a financial side, you can think of it as being able to chat with QuickBooks. Do I have enough money to make payroll? Do we have any challenges coming up I didn't foresee? Are there trends that I should be aware of? Do I have subscriptions to things that I didn't know about? So really, really amazing just on that one side. Now imagine that with your bids. Why am I always losing bids to this school district? Why am I getting this versus that? All of that for fractions and fractions of the cost that it used to be. In fact, it really was so costly in the past, it just wasn't an option. Only the largest organizations could do it, and now you can do it. So what's next? I think this is really interesting. I mean, I think that we're at an interesting crossroads because we're now coming into a point where we have more information than we have the ability to absorb it, right? And what I mean by that is our hands and our eyes and our ears and our mouth are helpful, but they're also a very slow interface, right? And so when you think about how you interact with the PC today, it's primarily with your hands and your eyes. You're moving mouse around, you're typing, things like that. The speed in which you can ingest or output data is the speed that you can type, right? Or the speed that you can read or listen to, depending on how you do it. And those are great, but we're kind of pushing it a little bit. And so especially on the manual physical typing kind of thing. And so moving more towards voice, moving more towards ideally thought, but having something that can interact completely in a more efficient manner is what's next. And what that means, honestly, is probably some big changes around the PC industry. To be honest, that whole interface is really dated in that sense. Now, ironically, your mobile phone started as a voice first tool, and so probably more along those lines. And when you imagine the camera aspects and being able to interact visually with AI, it's really, really powerful. So a lot to think about there, but I do think that that to give you an idea of the pace of innovation and things that are coming at us, we're having interface problems, and I think that's pretty telling. Telling thought to keep in mind. So call to action. So I think that right now, if you're seeing this, the key is you need to be playing with this technology. And so there's plenty of logos out there. I've got some on the screen here. I'll end up with a little kit for you at the end here to make sure that you have the things that you need. But Get out and start playing with this stuff now. It's not something that you're going to wait for training on. It uses natural language, meaning you can interact with it just like you would interact with another human. Don't expect the same things. Don't be too disappointed up front. I think the best way to couch this is to say, hey, this is really like having an intern, right? So that intern is really, really good at life, but not your life. They don't know the difference between how you do things. My funny and silly example is new intern comes in. I used to work in an ad agency, so we had interns all the time. But and a new intern comes in and they want to help out in any way and say, hey, you can go get me some coffee, and say, no, no problem. They run down to Dunkin' Donuts, they grab some coffee, they come back. Not bad. They did exactly what you asked. Unfortunately, you prefer Starbucks, and so you advise them, hey, this is awesome, but next time maybe Starbucks. And they go out and do the next thing, and guess what? They come back, but they got the wrong kind. They didn't get the 6 pumps of whatever that you liked, and so you have to modify that a little bit too, right? Now, the next time and any time in the future, they need to incorporate coffee or understand those decisions. They'll have that information and do it your way. So keep that in mind as you're playing with these tools. You type in something, it's not a Google search, right? It's not going to give you that same response. You're going to work with it a little bit, and then you're going to get the product that you like. Sometimes it might be a little frustrating, but that's okay. Change is sometimes frustrating. The advantages that you're going to get are really, really going to save you. There's so many tips in here on how to do automation and things like that. Those are super powerful. Each and every one of these is going to save you time. In general, I would say we're all seeing a minimum of 30% improvement in productivity. If you're not doing it right. I think that's the minimum. I think that's the start. So more to come on that one for sure. So with that, I talked a lot. I appreciate y'all's time, and next time hopefully we'll get a more interactive mode going so we can actually answer some questions, things like that. But I do want to share my information so we can connect in the future. My email is up there. Same with the website. Hopefully that redirects you to one of the ones I'm doing with podcasts. I just started some things around there. So if not, just search your favorite podcast thing for my last name. You'll find something. So anyway, that's all I have. If there's any other questions, please let. Oh, that's not true. I left you one small little gift. I mentioned I would give you a toolbox. Toolbox today looks like a paragraph. I know that seems a little disappointing sometimes because sometimes we want something to hold on to. But this paragraph, if you screenshot it, is going to save you a whole bunch. So it's just some really, really good starters on where you can go and kind of why you'd want to go there. Um, and I think it'll get you started. This changes every day. This again is moving faster than anything that we've seen, and so there's no doubt we'll get outdated quickly. But go to your favorite one. I prefer ChatGPT today, so go to your favorite one. Ask it for some of these things. Ask it for things that you didn't think were possible. To be honest with you, and it'll help you out from there. That's it. If you have any questions or anything, please reach out. It's been my pleasure. Take care.